Instead of spending hundreds of billions of dollars to defend the borders of distant foreign countries, under my leadership, we will defend our borders first. Three years ago, we had the safest border in the history of our country, and I will quickly do that again. As you know, I built hundreds of miles of wall and completed that task as promised. And then I began to add even more in areas that seemed to be allowing a lot of people to come in. So we're going to do another 200 miles of wall. And it could have been done and completed in 3 weeks, but the Biden administration said they weren't going to do it. And in fact, the wall was sitting there waiting to be installed, the easiest part. And Biden, they took it away so that Texas and Arizona couldn't use it. Texas and Arizona said, could we use that wall? We'll finish it right up. And they said no, and they actually took it away and they hid it. They put it in a hiding area, which of course was revealed pretty quickly. All you have to do is send a couple of helicopters up. But they wouldn't let them use it. Under my leadership, we will seal it up and expand that wall till we have total control. But we did a great job on the wall, remember, with Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. Yeah, we'll give it to you next year. I said, nope, nope, give it to me this year. Well, sir, if you approve this budget, we'll give it to you next year. I said, all right, that's okay. So I waited, then they didn't give it, you know. And yet Mitch McConnell approves $5.5 trillion for Green New Deal garbage. It's a disgrace. But I took it from the military because I considered it an invasion. So, Marjorie, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it right out of the military because they're invading our country. And I got it built, and we did a great job. We did it quickly, and we used the Army Corps of Engineers. They were fantastic. Before Biden came into office, we had illegal immigration at a record low. Refugees were at the lowest level in history. Human trafficking, women and children, was at the lowest in 30 years. And drug dealers were finding the U.S. border a very inhospitable place to be. It was very inhospitable. In my last year, less drugs came through the southern border than had been seen in many, many decades. We weren't playing games. Now we have complete chaos. Fentanyl is pouring in. Families are being wiped out, destroyed. And there's death everywhere, all caused by incompetence. Millions of illegal aliens are stampeding across our border. Interior enforcement has been shut down. Everyone is overstaying their visas. Nobody even thinks about reporting it anymore. My wonderful travel ban is gone. I had a travel ban. It was so wonderful. Refugee numbers are through the roof, and spies and terrorists are infiltrating our country totally unchecked like never before. When I'm back in the White House, the very first reconciliation bill I will sign will be for a massive increase in Border Patrol and a colossal increase in the number of ICE deportation officers. And I want to thank the Border Patrol. These are incredible people. And I want to thank ICE, and in particular, I want to thank Brandon Judd, Border Patrol, and Tom Homan, Central Casting. He's Central Casting. Under my leadership, we will use all necessary state, local, federal, and military resources to carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. Other countries are emptying out their prisons, insane asylums, and mental institutions, and sending all of their problems right into their dumping ground, the USA. Think of it. They're emptying out their prisons, and you've heard me say that, but they're also emptying out their mental institutions. And to use a strong couple of words, insane asylum. Insane asylum, that's where, anybody see Silence of the Lamb? That's where they come from, insane asylum. That's a stronger word than a mental institution. And they're putting them into our country. Thank you very much. I will ask every state and federal agency to identify every known or suspected gang member in America, and every one of them that is here illegally. And the towns know who they are. The towns and cities or the police. We love our police. The police know who they are. and we will pick them up, and we will throw them out of our country, and there will be no questions asked. We had a problem when I first assumed office in 26 years, a big problem. We'd have these people, we'd round them up, MS-13 gangs, the worst people. These are absolute brutal killers. They used to knife 16-year-old girls because it was more painful. It would take longer to kill her. These are real animals. And Nancy Pelosi says, how dare you call them animals? These are human beings. I said, no, they're not. But these are real animals. And we couldn't get them back into their countries because the country was like, especially three. You take a look at Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras in particular, and Mexico to an extent. You couldn't get them back in because they didn't want them. They sent them out in the first place. You know, they forced them into our country, just so you know. These are very smart people that run these places. They're very streetwise. So I said, what's the problem? Sir, we have thousands of people, but they won't allow us to land the planes. They won't allow the buses to cross the border. They won't allow them back in their country. I say, how much money do we pay to these various countries? Sir, we pay $750 million a year. I say, all right, inform the country that we're no longer paying any money. And if they ask why, you can tell them that. And, yes, sir, we'll do that. So the following morning, almost simultaneously, early, about 8 o'clock, I got calls from all three at one time. In fact, I had to tell two of them, I'll call you back. Because they all came in right on time, Matt. Right on time, like you call on time. And what happens is they came in and they called. They said, sir, there must be a misunderstanding. We would love to have MS-13 back in our country. And we started dropping them off by the tens of thousands, and I still hadn't paid them back their money. I kept it, figured let's hold it as long as possible because they've been ripping us off long enough. To stop the flow of deadly drugs, it will be my policy to take down the cartels, just as I took down the ISIS caliphate that everybody said was impossible to do. A lot of parents in this audience that lost a child, that lost a loved one to fentanyl and all of the drugs that are pouring in, so many different kinds. Fentanyl is a big problem. In fact, with the ISIS caliphate, a certain general said, it could only be done in 3 years, and probably it can't be done at all, sir. And I did it in 3 weeks. I went over to Iraq, met a great general. Sir, I can do it in 3 weeks. You've heard that story. I can do it in 3 weeks, sir. How are you going to do that? They explained it. I did it in 3 weeks. I was told it couldn't be done at all, but it would take at least 3 years. Did it in 3 weeks. Knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We have a great military. The reason I say that, we have a great military. And I will direct the Department of Justice to go after Marxist prosecutors' offices to make them pay for their illegal race-based enforcement of the law. By the way, we have one of those great generals with us, General Kellogg. Where is General Kellogg? Is he around here someplace? Where is General Kellogg? He's the greatest. He's here. Thank you, General. Thank you. Thank you, General. And in cities where there's been a complete breakdown of public safety, I will send in federal assets, including the National Guard, until law and order is restored. You know, we're not supposed to do that. And one thing I think about a lot is when we had some difficulty in certain cities like Minneapolis, and if you take a look at Portland, how's Portland doing? They don't even have storefronts anymore. Everything's 2x4s because they get burned down every week. They don't put new storefronts up. It's chaos. But when we had in Seattle, remember they took over a large portion. I was ready to send in the National Guard. They heard that. More than the National Guard. I was ready to go to town. And they heard that, and you know what they did? They said, we're going to break it up now. They left. But we saved Minneapolis. The thing is, we're not supposed to do that because it's up to the governor, the Democrat governor, and they never want any help. They don't mind. It's almost like they don't mind to have their cities and states destroyed. There's something wrong with these people. All of us have seen too many videos of 13-year-old carjackers and 14-year-old hoodlums viciously beating their victims. I saw it just yesterday, a horrible situation. They kill people without retribution because they may be days short of the age required to put them away, put them in jail, and throw away the keys for a long time. My administration will crack down on these out-of-control monsters, young though they may be, and impose tough consequences on juvenile criminals. You know, criminals use young people. They actually hire young people, pay them some money, not a lot, because if they get caught, nothing's going to happen to them. That will end. I will end the scourge of homelessness taking over our cities and suburbs. I just drove through Washington, D.C., coming here for the first time in quite a while, and the roads and highways were littered with trash like I've never seen before. It looked like somebody just took their garbage and just threw it all over the highways, the Beltway. It's so disgraceful, so disgusting. I always made it a point as president, when I saw the highways were dirty or that the homeless encampments were starting to form, to take care of the problem immediately. I used to have people out here all the time sweeping highways, cleaning highways, hosing them down. It bothered me so much. I'm in the beast. I'm being driven back to the White House from some site, and I'd see this filthy, dirty highway with paper that hasn't been, you could see it's been laying there for months. And I'd have them cleaned up. I wouldn't even call the mayor because it was never going to get done with the mayor. Frankly, the federal government should take over control and management of Washington, D.C. Good project, because it's horrible. And I think of it differently. Foreign leaders come in to see us. We want them to do what we want them to do. And they drive through these terrible, disgusting streets where their streets are much better maintained, much nicer. And they see camps and homeless all over our beautiful, once beautiful parks, all over. Hundreds and hundreds of tents. I used to have them taken down immediately. I'd see one or two or three. I said, do it fast, immediately. Then I'd check, and it was done. They'd never have time to do. Once they have 500, 600, 700 of these things up, it's a much more difficult thing. But you can do that too. Under our leadership, we will take the homeless, drug addicted, and severely deranged, get them off our streets, and create 10 cities where we will get them the help they so desperately need. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's crazy executive order installing Marxist diversity, equity, and inclusion czars in every federal agency. And I will immediately terminate all staffers hired to implement this horrible agenda. I will urge Congress to create a restitution fund for Americans who have been unjustly discriminated against by these Biden policies. They're so unfair. They're so un-American. They're so un-American. And we will ban all racial discrimination by the government. I will fight for parents' rights. Can you believe that here we are, and I'm saying I'm going to fight for parents' rights? Who would think that you have to ever say parents' rights? Don't you think parents have pretty good rights, right? Who would think that you have to actually say it? But you do, because they took the rights away, including universal school choice and the direct election of school principals by the parents. We want the school principal to be appointed and elected by parents. And you'll get some good principals then. Who loves the children more than the parents? If any principal is not getting the job done, the parents should be able to fire that principal immediately and select someone new. Continuing the work of our 1776 Commission, we will teach our values and promote our history and our traditions to our children. We will, in other words, be proud of our country again. Revoke every Biden policy promoting the chemical castration and sexual mutilation of our youth. and ask Congress to send me a bill prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. That should be easy. And we will keep men out of women's sports. Right? How ridiculous. That will take place on day one. I will destroy the illegal censorship regime and bring back free speech in America, because we do not have free speech. And I will stop Joe Biden's demolition of our economy with his crushing inflation and mass layoffs. We will take care of inflation very, very quickly. 4.9 million people have dropped out of the labor force since I was president. As the Trump administration's great Larry Kudlow, does everybody know Larry? As Larry Kudlow said, Biden is setting a record on economic regulations that are absolutely killing American companies. His spending and his borrowing are at record levels. It's causing historic inflation, sir, which is only going to get worse and worse. He just called me before I got it. I said, I don't want to say this, Larry. It's only going to get worse and worse. It's driving up interest rates, and new cars and homes are going to be impossible to buy. Amidst this economic disaster, Biden talks about saving you a few dollars on some junk fees. Don't mean anything. By defeating Joe Biden, I will save your economy, I will save your retirement accounts, and I will save your jobs. We had the greatest job history of any president ever. I will create a true national trade policy like the kind that made America the world's economic powerhouse. What we were doing prior to the dust coming in from China was nobody's ever seen it. There's never been anything like it. That period of 2.5 years there's never been anything like it. And I'll tell foreign nations where we spend billions of dollars on military protection that if American products do not receive preferential treatment in their markets, our military is packed up and leaving. Which some countries I did that with, and usually it took a phone call and everything was just fine. Because economic security is national security, I will revoke China's most favored nation's trade status immediately on day one. And I will implement a 4-year plan to phase out all Chinese imports of essential goods and gain total independence from China. We have to do it. We have to do it.